this is the President of the United States. Who is this? Is it you again?
Look behind you.
This is my private line. How did you get through?
They're everywhere. All the time. We see them every day. But you have to look behind you.
There is nothing behind me. How did you get this number?
The spaceman told me.
What spaceman?
It doesn't matter. They're telling you about monsters. Please, you must look behind you.
Young lady, there are no monsters in the Oval Office.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "We see me." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "We see me." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "We see me." Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. We see me. We see me. We see me.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. The numbers to call tonight, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. So, this is just too bizarre. Jonathan Fuller, who is a listener to the program, is a very accomplished artist, sculptor, and mask maker for various Hollywood TV shows and movies. He sent me an article just now, okay, and it just throws everything out the window here. Oh my gosh, I don't know where to start here. So the other night, when we were talking about the black-eyed children, somebody had called the program and they said, "Do you know of a Russian boy who claimed he was from Mars, and he basically said that the world was going to come to an end, there's life on other planets, and that any and all things that are apocalyptic and end-giving will be coming from Mars, because he said that the aliens would wage war from Mars if we disturbed them." Well, it's back in the news again, I guess. There's an article, Boredom Therapy, and talks about all of the, I guess you could call them revelations given by this kid. I'm just going through the list here. It just blows my mind. His people, as he referred to, survived the catastrophes on Mars, saw similarities between attitudes on current Earth and Mars prior to destruction of both planet Mars and planet Earth. In a world of power-hungry oligarchs and trigger-happy dictators, Earth faces a fate similar to those from Mars. The young boy said, "The human life will change when the Sphinx is open. It has an opening mechanism somewhere behind the ear." He said he didn't know the specifics. This is a little boy named Boris. He said, "The pyramids of Egypt hold the key to our survival." This is too weird. So yeah, somebody had brought up Boris Kiprianovich the other night on the program, and now he's back in the news again. Someone by the name of Cody Morrow decided to, I mean, this is just too weird. I mean, all these coincidences that are happening. You know, we did a show too about Mars. I think it was Monday or Tuesday. It was Monday, I think. And Richard Hoagland, we talked with him. He's coming on tonight, by the way. We had talked with Richard about some of the things I brought up, and he said he wanted to comment on me, some other things he wanted to comment on. And so now we talked about these black-eyed children, and somebody said, "Well, do you know anything about the Russian child who's an indigo child who said that he's from Mars, and he's made all these predictions, and one of them is about some sort of a Martian attack or something where if we disturb those on Mars, that we would basically be falling under attack, or there'd be some sort of attack that would happen." I just, And we just landed InSight, a couple days ago on Mars, and it's going to dig into the ground. And they had that signal with opportunity. Things are too weird. And not that I believe any of it. I just think it's just amazing how synchronicities happen. In the movie The Matrix, Morpheus says to Neo, "Welcome to the real world." And he was illustrating the dream world we have constructed and a real world that we are distracted from. And it's hard to open up and talk about a world that is often blocked or blinded by the various whims of politicians, technocrats, and pundits that push agendas and never quite give straight answers about what is really going on. Yes, it is a weird place. We live in a weird place. I mean, we now live in a time where in order to survive, we must have personal introspection and listen to what our gut and our heart are telling us about what is coming at us from a possible future and what can be determined to be an impossible or well-forgotten past. What I'm indicating here is what we call this loss of memory, or this timeline blurring with the Mandela effect and other group recalls that form a deficit. And, we somehow are losing the ability to remember where we have come from. And we're more than likely asking, where do we go from here, as everything around us seems to be falling apart? And new revelations have us asking if we're living in some sort of a hologram, or if we're living in an unfathomable universe that is constantly sending us signals. And many of these signals are natural, I understand. I mean, weather changes, earthquakes like what they had in Alaska, these types of things, send messages. Now, you may not think they're sending them they may send them to your conscious mind or your unconscious, but you certainly feel the psychological anguish and terror and fear. And these signals send a message to you, and you have to, evaluate what the message is. Now, there are other messages that can be compared to what the biblical prophets called the bellowing voice of God, a voice compared to the thundering of the skies and the roar of the oceans, the hums in the skies, the booms in the skies that are heard all over the world. I've been getting a lot of reports of booms being heard in various places around the world. The hums still occur. The horns still blow. The angels are trumpeting, people tell me. And I get this in emails. I get these experiences, and people tell me, Clyde, it is a strange world. And this show opens people up to the strangeness, and they don't feel as crazy. I mean, look, it all can be a metaphor, right? And there's a lot of old Hermetic arcanum, as above, so below, where we can look up into the heavens, and we know that the promised signs and portents are there. It's something that is going on to cause the earth to tremble. In some cases, it can cause hearts to weaken. I mean, it's becoming all too obvious that we have lost that clear line that divides science fiction from reality. Now, in a quantum sense, if we think it, we can manifest it. And the general mindset of the majority of people around the world is worrisome to a certain degree, because we're always told, as a man thinks, so he is. As the group thinks, so it will be. And as we manifest terror upon horror upon, you name it, it seems to be manifesting every day. The overall thoughts and fears of the era in which we live have created an air of strangeness and intrigue. The world has become a stranger and more interesting place by the day. And I believe that this applies both to our individual universes within and with the outer world at large. And our hearts and prayers tonight go out to the people of Alaska. There was a major earthquake today, huge earthquake. It lasted about a minute and a half. A minute and a half of strong shaking, 7.0. Shaking. You're seeing roads buckling, cracks. People were seeing strange lightning in the skies. It was like, terrifying for a lot of people. But there was something that happened prior to this earthquake that I want to call your attention to. I mean, in case you haven't heard, there was a strange event that happened November 11th. I mean, there was a hum happening. And it was a hum that nobody could hear. But it was a seismic event, and it originated between Madagascar and Mozambique. And once it started, it circled the entire planet. And whatever it was so unusual that scientists were baffled. They did not know what it was. It sparked a hunt for the source of the hum, and to this day, it hasn't been resolved. Now, National Geographic reported that the hum was strange for a number of reasons. First, it rang at just a single ultra-low frequency like a well-tuned bell. Now, seismic waves usually involve lots of different frequencies. Second, the wave emerged and circled the planet without the usual signs of an earthquake. No one in the area felt any shaking, and the P waves and S waves associated with the hum, well, these are the sort of waves that actually you can feel during an earthquake. They were so faint as to be nearly undetectable, but the earth rang like a bell. And yet, a November 12th report from the French government found that the island of Mayotte in the waters near Madagascar had slid 2.4 inches to the east and 1.2 inches to the south. So whatever this was, it was some strange hum so low that it was detected, but no one heard it. And so the P waves and the S waves associated with it would create an earthquake, but it didn't create an earthquake. It was something that was detected, didn't cause an earthquake, and then later we had this major earthquake in Alaska. So what was tuning the earth? What was sending the hum through the earth? What signal was being sent? Where did it come from? Well, I have an idea. I have a speculation, but I'm sure, there's no scientist who's going to back it up. So it's one of those things that I've seen a similarity. I see similarities in a lot of things, and there's a similarity to something that happened in 2004 that I want to share with you. It may give you some answers to what may be happening. This is some really bizarre stuff. And it does have to do with space. It has to do with Earth. It has to do with as above, so below. It has to do with on Earth as it is in heaven. Wherever you want to pull your dogma, this is something that is amazing and needs to be reported. And we're going to have it for you right here on Ground Zero. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
This is Ground Zero on FM News 101.
Things happen for a reason. If you wanted to fly from Madagascar to Antarctica, you would be, about 5,000 miles away. Now, that general area between Madagascar and Antarctica, I believe, is the antipodal to Alaska. Okay. And so this hum that we were talking about, the one on November 11th, was between Madagascar and Mozambique, and it circled the entire planet. So whatever it was, this was in the general area of the antipodal of Alaska, meaning that if you were to dig through the planet in that area, you'd wind up in Alaska. That's what I could be wrong about antipodals. I always get confused. Antipodal Alaska. I got to look this up because I'm trying to figure this out. Antipodal Alaska. So I go to an antipodes map and I see that, okay, they gave me the wrong antipodes. I'll have to look this up because somebody had told me today that the antipodal point where the earthquake happened is right in the general area where the hum happened. Okay. So, I'll be looking into that. It just seems that things happen for a reason. Okay. And when you're looking at the opposite side of the world, where you're looking at the antipodes, and, we did this before with New Zealand and CERN, and we were curious about, where you would end up. And, it's just bizarre that this hum happened, and then we have this earthquake. So there were about 108 earthquakes that happened since May 13th in the Mayotte region, the island there near Madagascar. And then we had this hum that happened on November the 11th. The 12th reported, French newspapers reported that island moved about a mile, or no, a couple inches, sorry. It moved a couple inches, about 1.2, I believe. No, 2.4 inches to the east, 1.2 inches to the south. And so, I have an idea of what is going on here. And this is speculative, okay? So I'm not going to say this is fact because I don't have anything yet to back it up. All I have is circumstance, all right? I remember that something happened similar in 2004. There was a moment when the earth hummed like a bell, and then there was a major earthquake and a tsunami in Indonesia. But there were also things happening in the sky. There were huge fireballs that were coming down over Jakarta. And they were thinking that maybe they were under attack. And I remember I got into this discussion with Dave Talbot, who's with Thunderbolts.info. And of course, he has this thing about the electric universe and how things in space do affect the planet in an electrical way. Immanuel Velikovsky, when worlds collide, collisions and things like that. And so what happened was in 2004, there was this moment when the earth hummed like a bell. And there was this major earthquake in Indonesia that it was a 9.3. And that occurred in the Indian Ocean off the coast of Sumatra in Malaysia on December 26, 2004. And it was one of the most devastating earthquakes ever recorded. In fact, it caused a powerful tsunami, which devastated many coastal regions. About 240,000 people were dead or missing. This was one of the worst earthquakes, one of the worst disasters. It was a declared biblical proportion type disaster. Just 44 hours later, scientists reported that a gamma-ray telescope orbiting the Earth had picked up the arrival of one of the brightest gamma-ray bursts ever recorded. The gamma-ray burst finally arrived from deep space on December 27, 2004, at 21 hours, 36 minutes Universal Time. Was 100 times more intense than any burst that had been previously recorded. It equaled in the brightness of the full moon that radiated most of its energy at gamma-ray wavelengths. So, once again, if we have a gamma-ray burst, chances are we don't see it because the magnetic field basically bends to it. And this blast was so huge that it temporarily changed the shape of the Earth's ionosphere and it distorted the transmission of long wavelength radio signals because the magnetic field had to bend to it. And scientists say that gamma ray bursts come from an area, this gamma ray burst that happened came from an area between Sagittarius and Scorpio. And others were saying that the channels were wide open, and people were saying, this is the voice of God, okay? These bright flashes, this gamma burst was a voice from, it's God's way of saying hello. Or if you don't want to say God, it's the galactic ghoul's way of saying hello. It swallows probes, it knocks out power. I mean, coincidentally, we have the 7.0 earthquake that actually struck Alaska after we have this humming anomaly that encircled the Earth in an area near Mozambique and Madagascar. And so we have to figure out the antipodal, because if that's the case, if Alaska is the antipodal to that area near Madagascar and Antarctica, then something happened. Either it happened from within the Earth or something from deep space affected that area just like it did back in 2004. And like I said, this is all circumstance. This is all circumstance. But it just reminds me of what happened in 2004. It's too weird. And, with all the things that have happened with the, space telescope shutting down, the Kepler going down, all these things going down, something shut those things down. And many times they've said the galactic ghoul swallows up another probe and it comes and it attacks and, it's some strange miasma, some strange power, gravitic pull on the planet that somehow zaps the planet, bends the ionosphere, and creates earthquakes. It's creepy when you think about it, because that means we're at the mercy of whatever is out there in space. Whatever decides to aim a huge bolt of electricity or bolt of gravitic wave at us, pulls on the planet, creates an earthquake. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
Hey, it's Ronnie with us again, and I want to ask him about the 3-letter oil. Now, that's pretty mysterious. There's a lot of letters out there that we can think of. There's TLC, tender loving care. That's PDQ, pretty damn quick. But this is the 3-letter mystery, and the oil that brings the 3 letters. What can you tell me about this mystery 3-letter oil?
This 3-letter oil is amazing, and so much is going on in the news with this oil, and this is something that I pride myself in the company because it is GMO-free and it is organic. And there's a lot of companies out there selling the 3-letter oil, but maybe doesn't go through quite the rigmarole that I go through to get the purest and the best. So it's kind of the Ferrari of oils. The benefits, if somebody has anxiety, really will help you. Stress is, and here's a little fact from stress. Stress will take a normal body, somebody with perfect circulatory system, and can give them a heart attack if they're stressed too much. So stress is really important to get rid of. That'll also knot your muscles up.
My wife loves the 3-letter oil. It helps her out. She just had her breast cancer. She's happy, and it helps her a great deal. And I'm happy, too. And I just would wonder, when are we going to be able to be free to give out information about the 3-letter oil?
It might have to be a mystery oil for all times, but one thing that I love about it, it's legal in 49 states. And we've opened up. We're just opening up to Britain as well, so that's kind of exciting. They're kind of understanding the 3-letter oil. So a lot of places are, catching on board whether the government wants to go that way or not.
Well, I love it. It works. And Ronnie, I'm so glad you have it out there for everybody. Where can we pick it up? AncientLifeOil.com. That's AncientLifeOil.com. Thank you, man.
More with Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero on FM News 101.
The single most promising thing we've ever seen came out of the Demeter satellite. I believe it was a French satellite. And it was detecting ionospheric disruptions that seemed to occur before some of the largest earthquakes.
The clock is ticking.
The world is coming to an end, people.
The clock is ticking.
The world is coming to an end, people. The world is coming to an end, people.
The clock is ticking.
The world is coming to an end, people.
The inhabitants refer to it as the planet Earth.
How peaceful it looks.
Attention. People of Earth. Attention. People of Earth. Attention. Attention. People of Earth. Attention. The voice speaking to you from thousands of miles beyond your planet. This is a voice speaking to you from thousands of miles beyond your planet. Look to your sun for a warning. Look to your sun for a warning.
What is the galactic ghoul and why is it eating our space probes?
There are strong indications that there are communications between scientists and our government.
What is the galactic ghoul and why is it eating our space probes?
WFTL, you're on the air. Hello.
There's one of you on the program who will understand what I'm going to say. And every living thing on this planet has an aura. The area that you are discussing now is the aura of this planet. It is the communicative channel through which the Million Council governs this planet. Anyone going into the area when the communicative channel is open do not disappear, but they are in the timeless void. We are all perfectly alive and well. It is the only area through which the Council can communicate with this planet.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. So that strange P-wave and S-wave event happened at the antipodal of Alaska. It's amazing if you do the homework. It actually, the antipodal means if you were to dig through the planet to the other side, that's what an antipodal is. You would be digging from the Kerguelen Islands. And from there, you have a science center called Port-au-Français, which is a French-owned island. It's a science center. No one knows it. I don't know what the science they do there is, but the hum came from there, okay? So you have that hum coming from there, and then the antipodal, the place if you dig through the planet and come up the other side, it would be Alaska. It would be Alaska. So, I'm not saying that the hum caused the earthquake. I'm saying that coincidentally, there have been a lot of earthquakes happening in that area of Mayotte. The island has moved. It's between Madagascar and Mozambique. It's in the same area as the antipodal of Alaska. So whatever happened may be connected. Something happened there. If you're looking at the map, I'm checking the map out right now, okay? And it says here, in the region of Mayotte, May 13th, from May 13th on, they have had 108 earthquakes. Then the event that took place between Mozambique and Madagascar, which is the antipodal of Alaska, meaning that if you dig through the planet, you wind up in Alaska. So, pretty bizarre stuff going on right now. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Let's go to Lisa in Texas. Hi, Lisa. You're on Ground Zero.
Clyde.
Yes.
Namaste and shalom. So I just wanted to bring up the depth that the ripple occurred at, but just since the ripple, the huge surge of earthquakes that have occurred all at the same depth. Like, yes, other earthquakes do hit at this depth, but the number is just jaw-dropping. Like, I lost count at 50 plus in the past 15 days, and it's all over. In fact, there was one at Alaska on the 22nd. I didn't write that date down. And then the 7.0 went off.
It's interesting.
There's something with this depth.
Right. There's something that is going on in the depth of the planet, or something that is being triggered outside the planet. And I'm saying that this same thing happened in December of 2004. It happened before the Jakarta quake, and that was 9.0, or the Sumatra quake was in 9.0. It was a 9-pointer, and it created a wobble on the planet. And so, we had the ring, the planet rang, and then scientists were saying, well, we were hit by a gamma ray burst. Something was, the gamma ray burst hit and bent the magnetic field, which could have triggered earthquakes and other things on the planet, including bad radio frequencies and all kinds of stuff. So I'm not saying, I'm only saying that there's a coincidence here. I'm only saying there's a coincidence that the antipodal of Alaska is the area where this wave happened.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening, but there's been a lot of weird things. Like, also, there's been a lot of weird surges. Like, Japan had an earthquake, and then all of a sudden, water comes surging up out of nowhere. And I've seen reports put out about how scientists don't really understand.
You there, Lisa?
And it's just one of those, like, are there deeper holes that we don't really understand?
I don't know.
Something shifting around? Is something being triggered?
Something is happening, yes. But remember, the area that's the antipodal to Alaska is a French science center. And I don't know what kind of science goes on at this French science center in these islands. This entire cluster.
Where Africa's ripping apart, too.
Yeah, that's true. We've got that the South Atlantic anomaly that happens over in that area, a magnetic vortex that pulls. Anyway, thank you so much for the call, Lisa. That's great. Thank you.
Yes, sir. You're welcome.
You bet. Let's go to Nathan in Ohio. Hi, Nathan. You're on Ground Zero.
Hi, Clyde. Basically, my point is that there is also the possibility that it is an intentional technological earthquake.
Well, that's always the case. People always say it could be HARP, but we have to figure out if HARP was triggered and whether or not they were actually intentionally focusing in Alaska. And I have my doubts.
I just mean, it doesn't even necessarily have to be a human element to cause an earthquake on the planet.
Right.
But it just seems like with the hum and the earthquake, that it almost seemed intentional.
Or something happened that we have no control over. I mean, like I said before, everything has a natural occurrence, but there's also the domino effect. And maybe they're not related, but I just find it interesting and coincidental. Once again, my coincidence eyebrows raise when I see that the antipodal of Alaska is the very area where we had this hum back on November the 11th. And just, I think a week before, I had posted on the internet that there was something out in space they said that could trigger a gamma burst any time now. So, I mean, we could have had a gamma burst. In fact, I ought to find that story and read it to you. That we could have had one, a small one, that could have happened, that could have triggered something near the magnetic anomaly. I don't know.
That's true.
Yeah. So anyway, Nathan, I appreciate the call. I really appreciate you calling and being aware. Thank you so much. Let's go to Rick in Michigan. Hi, Rick. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde.
Hey.
I remember Bernard Eastland in a documentary, Holes in Heaven, regarding HAARP, and he's the godfather of all that. He explained the arrays, the pattern arrays. He said that technology was hijacked for nefarious purposes. He was pretty livid about that and remorseful.
Right.
John Lear says there are space-based platforms with very advanced lasers, like what the fireman Captain John Lord in Northern California has now documented from eyewitness accounts, lightning bolts being photographed with smartphone cameras, like electric blue and golden. They were those two colors. And that causes me to reflect on 9/9 of 17, where Michio Kaku with Charlie Rose this morning describes megatrillion-watt lasers.
Well, he's mentioned those with regard to weather control.
Yeah, but they're, I'm sure they're used for many purposes.
Yeah. Well, including earthquakes, right?
Well, Tesla was doing it way back when. Tesla had already proved he had an earthquake device.
Yeah. Using electromagnetic frequencies to create the type of friction or the electromagnetic friction necessary to create earthquakes or some other seismic event, right?
I think it's called sympathetic resonance.
Yeah.
And I fear that, this is tangential, but the 5G deployment, I suspect it will interface with the human central nervous system. It isn't just for AI cars, which I'm going to boycott. I'll never have an AI car. And they've already proven to be a joke anyway with accidents. So, but this technology really needs to be reined in. And I'm quite certain, Thomas Woods was interviewed a couple of weeks ago on Coast to Coast, and someone asked him about, all this AI technology and, that it's emanating from DARPA. And then the guy cited a document, it's NASA Future War 2025.
Yeah.
And there's a presentation on YouTube, which I did see, TrueStream, man, it 47th chromosome, man. I mean, come on. I mean, they go through, Clyde, you got to see that sometime,
well,
right?
We talked about that all on this show, too. I mean, there's no need to plug them when we're talking about it, too.
Okay, right.
Thank you.
Man, it's for real, and they're doing it. And Wood said, man, they're being taxpayer funded. They need to be shut down. This technology has gone way too far. Well,
they're not necessarily being taxpayer funded anymore. They're being privately funded now. See, that's the
wait
thing.
A minute.
Nobody keeps up with what's going on. There are people now who have enough money to fund these things privately. The Navy claimed to have basically took their hands off of HAARP and handed it over to someone else privately.
Well, okay. So we need to follow the trail and shut it down. I don't care who's got it. It's got to be shut down.
Well, first you got to prove that they're doing it for nefarious purposes, and they're going to hide it behind all kinds of paperwork and bureaucracy, right?
Well, I guess I'm an eternal optimist, Clyde. I still think there are good people in the CIA and in the military.
Well, I'd like to think they're good people too, but they did a lot of testing of nuclear weapons that basically gave me tuberous sclerosis. So I don't know.
Oh yeah.
So
I know. And then look at the Bikini Atoll.
Yeah, look at all that fun stuff they did with radiation. Now they're doing it with electromagnetic energy, and people are going to feel the pain and the suffering, and then they get the apologies, and they get no repercussions, or they don't get any financial restitution for it. They just have to suffer, and they get a nice little apology from a future president who has no idea what happened. Just think of Tuskegee, and then tell me about that for a moment. Just tell me about what a government does. Tell me how a government acts when they decide to use certain technologies and certain types of weapons of mass destruction on people. They give a big apology, but it doesn't do any good because the damage is done. And once again, I don't know about whether or not this quake was caused by HAARP. I mean, that's always the default, right? The default is HAARP. And, they have the technology. They can use it, but for why? Why would they use it? Why would they use it on Alaska? Especially when they have a 7.0 earthquake in Alaska. Especially when we have other things, mitigating circumstances, circumstantial evidence that we could conclude that there was a strange hum that originated at the antipodal of Alaska. And it was on a science center. It's a science center island area near Mozambique, near Madagascar, near Antarctica, in that general vicinity there. About a 5,000-mile, give or take, circle in that area. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
More with Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero on FM News 101.
Chris in Oregon. Hi, Chris. You're on Ground Zero.
That's right, buddy. What's up?
How you doing, man?
Good, dude. How are you?
Doing great.
Oh, man. Loving your show last night. Just everything, man. You're amazing, dude.
Thank you.
Bringing it out,
Thank you so much.
All right. So, there's earthquakes happening like 50 plus all around the world that are right at 6.2 miles depth, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So there's a coincidence with that.
I also heard that there was an earthquake in Buenos Aires today, a 3.5, I believe.
Okay. What depth, though?
No idea. No idea.
Right.
I was more focused on the Alaskan quake because of the antipodal connections to Madagascar.
Okay, yeah.
So that's all.
And I want to say antipodal, too. So that goes in coincidence with everything else. Also, we are in a solar minimum, correct?
I don't know. As far as I know, yes, we are in a solar minimum, yeah.
Yes, we are. And that livens up a lot of the underground, either lava or whatever it is.
Well, something was moving under the earth, or something was moving outside of the earth. Either way, it's as above, so below. You have so many coincidences of strange things happening above us before the events take place. And I was kind of saying, with all this going on, you can expect some wrath of God coming. And people were saying, oh, no, I believe that my God isn't a wrath of God thing. And then we have this happen in Alaska. I wasn't necessarily, meaning tomorrow we'd have some wrath of God going on, but certainly it did happen. And certainly it's something that I think we need to pay attention to. Let's go to John in Oregon. Hi, John. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde, I wanted to mention how I think all this kind of ties in with the Egypt and pyramids and with Mars.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of, in World War II, they heard a radio transmission that they found the Tomb of the Visitor?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And it's just funny how they're the ones that came up with all the wonder weapons and the advanced technology. And, we were
just talking about Joseph Farrell the other night about the weapons of antiquity brought from Mars, or at least from Mars, or some sort of signals being sent from Mars to remind us that, they're out there somewhere. It's kind of an interesting little connection, I think.
Well, just that advanced technologies and stuff, they're not really going to share with us. You just have to make up your own mind.
No. I know it's interesting to speculate, and certainly there are a lot of things that are, like you say, or you have said and brought up, and I brought up a lot of synchronicities that don't have any explanation. And you try to explain them, and you wait for science to explain them. And when they can't explain them, you decide you want to just take a leap, and people are like all offended. How dare you? Let's wait for science to say so. Well, NASA never really said anything about the signal that they thought was coming from opportunity. They didn't say anything about that, but it happened. They didn't say anything about why the Kepler shut down or why Chandra X-ray went down or why they closed Sunspot. They kept that a big secret. So something's going on.
Keeps believing that someone else has already activated a base or on Mars, whoever got there first, or to defend it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like I'm saying, they're not telling us anything. And so, that leaves us to do a lot of speculation. And I'm sure they're going to give us some mundane explanation, and that's okay. Everybody will believe it. And the crazy conspiracy theorist on at night is going to be told by a bunch of trolls, he was wrong. But I'm just saying, we've been saying for a long time, there's some connections going on here, and we're going to start seeing some action. Well, the action starts. And Alaska, as I say,
follow the trail.
Yeah, follow the dots, and you start seeing it happen. John, thanks for the call. I really appreciate the call.
Hey, I love your show, man.
Thank you, buddy. Thank you. Once again, our prayers go out to those in Alaska that suffered with this earthquake. Very bad earthquake. The connections are amazing to what has been happening leading up to this point. They may or may not be connected, but they certainly are interesting to talk about. Talk with us about it. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Richard Hoagland coming up next. Stay tuned.
FM News 101 KXL.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Hey, it's Clyde Lewis for Fast Start Diet. You know it works, and it's now your turn to try it. Available on Amazon.com or go to FastStartDiet.com. Use promo code Clyde and get $10 off your first box. You'll also get the #1 rated Lipo3 Appetite Suppressant Spray. It's free. Whatever your weight loss goals, begin with FastStartDiet.com. Use promo code Clyde. That's promo code Clyde.
Spinning complacently in the darkness, covered and blinded by a blanket of little lives, false security has lulled the madness of this world into a slumber. Wake up, an eye is upon you, staring straight down and keenly through, seeing all that you are and everything that you can never be. Yes, an eye is upon you, an eye ready to blink. So face forward, with arms wide open and mind reeling. Your future has arrived. Are you ready to go?
The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Jimmy." Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy. Wait, Jimmy.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. The number is to call tonight, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. So many amazing things happening right now. You can't keep up with them, right? And it's it can be puzzling. It can also raise some suspicions. And, of course, I always see things happening in a synchronistic type of way. And we pointed out synchronicities on Monday when we were talking about the situation on Mars, InSight, the anomalies, quantum mechanics, things of that nature. And, you know, I was kind of running of the mouth last night, talking a little bit about, you know, when things like this go down, I always worry about the wrath of God coming. And I had a woman call and say, there is no wrath of God. There's no whatever. And I meant that metaphorically. I meant that, you know, with everything going on, it just seems that we're about ready to burst at something. And my wife had turned me on to this report coming out of Mozambique, Madagascar, an island called Moyote. And this island apparently moved like a mile or two when this hum happened. There was a strange hum that was picked up, and it went around, it pulsed around the earth. And I thought to myself, this sounds familiar to me. When the earth starts ringing like a bell, it sounds familiar to me. And in fact, I mentioned on my my Facebook page, I said something like, you know, this reminds me of what happened back in December of 2004 when we had that major earthquake in Sumatra, in Indonesia. And it triggered a tsunami, and it was a 9.0. And it turned out that a couple days, I guess, after they had the ringing and they had a lot of activity in space, there was a gamma ray burst that bent the magnetic field, very bright, bent the magnetic field, did some, played hob with all kinds of radio frequencies and broadcasts. And so as I was doing my investigation into this earthquake that happened in Alaska today, 7.0, I noticed something odd about the earthquake, and somebody had pointed out to me, first thing was, what is the antipodal of Alaska? Because last time we had an earthquake in New Zealand, we found the antipodal was CERN or somewhere near CERN. So I was thinking, I wonder what the antipodal for Alaska. Found out it's in the same area where this hum, whatever it was, this P wave, S wave hum began. And this basically turned everything on its ear. Our guest tonight, of course, Richard C. Hoagland, on the program, who we're very happy to bring on. Of course, he is the principal investigator and founder of the Enterprise mission, as well as the vision and voice of The Other Side of Midnight, his show. I've been on it a couple times. Great show. You want to tune into it on his site, Enterprise Mission. He is recipient of the Angstrom Medal, the former science advisor to CBS News and Walter Cronkite, and author of the best-selling books The Monuments of Mars, The Dark Mission, Secret History of NASA. Together with Carl Sagan, Mr. Hoagland co-created the Pioneer Plaque and predicted life on Europa in his groundbreaking paper, The Europa Proposal. It was published 37 years before NASA's announcement. His vision has inspired a whole new generation of pioneers of thought and form and opened the way for citizen scientists around the globe. His work is emulated by cutting-edge thinkers. He's remarkable. Glad to have him back on the program. Richard C. Hoagland, thanks for being here.
Hi, Clyde. Well, I can go home now.
Okay.
I'm tired after hearing all that.
I know. I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted, too. It's been one of those days where, you just, things kind of like click and the dominoes fall and you're saying to yourself, okay, your eyebrows raise, synchronicities. In fact, I was reading today, Christopher Knowles calls you the father of synchronicity. You know that, right?
I did not know that. Yes. I know Chris very well.
Yeah. So Christopher Knowles calls you the of Secret Son. I got to give him a plug. He calls you the father of synchronicity, and it's kind of like that because when I was discussing the synchronicities of Werner von Braun and Elon Musk. Elon Musk, and I was talking about the synchronicities of Face on Mars, Jack Kirby, Arthur Clarke. I was thinking of you, called you, and then you said, I'll be on Friday, and now this has happened. Something strange happens, this big earthquake in Alaska and the strange hum. What do you know about what's going on with this thing?
Only what I read in the papers, as they used to say, but we do have some meta models. First of all, I don't talk about synchronicities. I talk about hyperdimensional resonances. Mm-hmm. Because this is all part of the resonance reality field we're in. You know that Musk thinks that we're all in a simulation?
Yeah, he does. He thinks we're all in a hologram.
And mm-hmm. I'm beginning to wonder because, remember, there's a key number that I talk about endlessly, 19.5.
Mm-hmm.
It shows up over and over and over again, almost like someone or something's trying to send us a message. Through the field, through the hologram, through the matrix, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be ourselves, because it's the way out. The 19.5 is the physics.
It's the signal. It's the number, the unlocking number.
Yeah. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
Every major leader on the planet tonight is meeting in Buenos Aires, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a stone's throw from a place in southern Argentina called Bariloche.
Mm-hmm.
Know about Bariloche?
I've been in Bariloche, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's the Nazi stronghold after the war where Perón stuck all these Nazis.
They have good chocolate, too, by the way. But, yeah, it's a good
and they have a bunch of tetrahedral buildings.
Mm-hmm.
When you look down from orbit, you'll see the equilateral triangles of the tetrahedral structures they built there. Why? Why at the end of South America is there a strange place where all kinds of very high-level people over the last several decades have visited, from Barack Obama to Jimmy Carter to you name it, what's his name, John Kerry?
Mm-hmm.
They've all gone to Bariloche. Why?
And what about the Russian Orthodox priest that went to Bariloche and then shot down to Antarctica to bless the penguins, quote,
and
quote.
They all went down to Antarctica because there's something major going on in Antarctica. Do you remember the weird tweet that Buzz Aldrin sent right before he was carried out on a hospital stretcher from his visit to the Antarctic?
He said something about it being evil, or we're witnessing
evil.
Yeah, we're witnessing the evil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And we haven't really seen much of him in public since, have we?
No, and he was also, after he went to Antarctica, wore a shirt that said, "Get your ass back to Mars." And he said that there was a monolith on Mars that no one knew about. And people thought, oops, something that he let slip about Mars.
Well, it's not on Mars. It's on the inner moon, Phobos.
Okay.
And it's around, I think, 300 feet tall. It's on the side of Phobos that is aimed toward Mars. Mars is this little planet, 4,200 miles across, half the size of the Earth. And it's got these two diminutive moons orbiting it, Phobos and Deimos.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just like, 15, 20 miles across. They're not like our moon. They're just, shards of something. But they orbit so that one side faces Mars and the other side faces away, just like our moon has one side facing Earth and one side facing away, because they have what it's called synchronous rotation. They're tidally locked so that one side always faces the primary. On the side of Phobos, the little 20-mile wide moon, crater potato-shaped moon that's facing Mars, there's this 300-foot tall tower that looks incredibly crisp and new and bright and shiny. I think it's the elevator to take you down inside Phobos. And over several years now, Aldrin has been pointing this out in whatever television interview that he's been doing.
Yes. I saw that interview, and it was like people were saying, what's he talking about?
Yeah, it's not on Mars. It's on. And now there are other copies that kind of look like the monolith in 2001 that have been photographed on Mars itself. But the big monolith he's talking about is the one on Phobos. Because, of course, Phobos and Deimos are not moons. They're actually ancient, very, very eroded spacecraft. And that's a whole other show.
So are those monuments, of course, to quote your book title, those monuments on Mars, are they ancient technologies?
Yes, of course. And we now know there's several different epochs or eras. When I got into this, which was, good grief, it's been a while now. Initially, I thought, ancient super civilization on Mars. Mars dies, remnants of civilization come to Earth, somehow lead to us, and we're the only ones alive in the solar system, right?
Right.
Now, looking back millions of years, it's obvious that we had several stages to, shall we say, extraterrestrial influence in this nursery. And an awful lot of civilizations, just like on Earth, arose and fell on Mars. So we can now chart the artifacts by the degree of their newness, how much they're not eroded, to get a kind of rough estimate of what's new and what's very ancient, that kind of thing.
Right.
Because we're looking at a huge panoply of solar system history that we're not supposed to know about. The inside crowd, the NASA guys, the ESA guys, the Russians, the Japanese, the Chinese, the Indians, the White House, whatever, they all know. But we're not supposed to know. Because remember Brookings, it's supposed to be so destabilizing it will wind up killing civilization if we know.
But throughout time, it's always been speculated about canals and perhaps vegetation and movements on Mars. And then, of course, when we send up Mariner, nobody saw that, and then we send up Viking, and immediately people started going, wow, what are we seeing? We're seeing artifacts, pyramids, the face, all these things that, of course, you've talked about in the past. We're going to take a break. Richard C. Hoagland with us on Ground Zero tonight, enterprisemission.com. Tonight, talking about everything we talked about last Monday and more, connections with what is going on in Alaska, Antarctica, and beyond. Tonight, you're going to get a full throttle of what it is that is going on in this universe. Synchronicities abound, quantum mechanics are spooky things at a distance, and Richard Hoagland, hyperdimensional physics, are here to talk about it. Richard C. Hoagland with us tonight on Ground Zero. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
Back to Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis on FM News 101.
Richard C. Hoagland with us tonight on Ground Zero. The Other Side of Midnight.com. The Other Side of Midnight.com. Great show. He hosts it. It's an amazing program. He's on with us tonight. And we're bringing him on because of a lot of synchronicities with regard to Mars, synchronicities with regard to space. The hum that was heard around the world, starting from an area near Mozambique and Madagascar, which, by the way, we pointed out in the first hour, is the antipodal to the earthquake in Alaska, which is bizarre in and of itself, because it just seems to me that we're having a lot of synchronicities that are going on right now, and it falls in the direct, I guess it would fall direct in line, Richard, to, your hyperdimensional physics and, of course, what some people call quantum mechanics, would it not?
Yeah, quantum mechanics, 0-point hyperdimensional physics, it's all the same thing, Remember the guys in the elephant?
Mm-hmm.
I think what we need is a kind of a meta theory for tonight.
And what's that?
I think someone is warning the elites on the planet, the guys who run the world. And I think they've been doing it for at least several months, if not years. And I'll give you a list of weirdnesses that are going on that make me think this.
Okay.
Last summer, right after the president met with Putin in Helsinki, remember a week or so later, he said that I'm going to have him come to Washington. We're going to have a second meeting in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And then sometime after that, they suddenly said, no, we thought better of it. We'll just wait on that meeting. And it got canceled mysteriously.
Right.
Do you know what happened in between?
What happened?
Over Siberia, for 3.5 hours, over an area the size of Italy, total darkness descended in midday.
That's right. The sun was blocked out, and there was a bubbling, oily type of sky that they were witnessing. It was terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that? What was that, Richard? Are you there, Richard?
Are you there?
Yeah, I thought you muted yourself. What was that?
No.
What happened over that area?
I just lost you for several seconds on this end, too. Very strange.
Something happened.
Because we're talking about a taboo subject.
Yes, we are. Okay.
We're talking about someone with extraterrestrial capabilities who is warning the power structure of this planet that they're coming. This has been our model for years. And they're doing it in increments. They're kind of increasing the pressure. And I think that's part of the secret discussion going on right now in Buenos Aires with all the world leaders, including Putin. And with great high dudgeon. Remember Trump said yesterday morning, I'm not going to meet with Putin because of what's going on in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it turns out now they're going to have a non-sit-down meeting. They're going to be at a cocktail party, and they're both going to kind of sidle up to each other and going to talk to each other, even if they don't have a closed-door one-on-one. It's like they're all playing games because, and Angela Merkel was late, remember?
Mm-hmm.
because her plane, she has some kind of weird electronic interference with her plane. The leader of the German government, Lufthansa, they can't get a plane in the air for their, prime minister to get to a global meeting that's scheduled every year. I mean, the G20 is not mysterious. It happens every year. Okay, moves around the planet like a movable party or something.
Now, you know that there was an earthquake. There was an earthquake today, actually, in Buenos Aires. It was just... Yeah, there was. It was I believe it was a 3.2.
Oh, so someone's tickling the planet to let them know we're watching.
Yeah, it was a 3.2 in Buenos Aires, or near Buenos Aires, a place called, it's Buenos Aires. And then, of course, there was a 4.6 that was in an area near the Andes Mountains. Of course, Andes, of course, is Bariloche, a little farther away than Bariloche. And on the 27th, there was one... in San Antonio de los Cobres, which is in Salta. That's Argentina as well. So Argentina has been shaking as well. So now we're having this G20 summit, and they had one yesterday in Buenos Aires, a small earthquake, a 3.2. Yeah,
just enough to get their attention.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's just odd that, we have a minor quake in Argentina, a big quake in Alaska, and we have that strange hum pulse, or that pulsing thing going on that happened there in Mozambique, Madagascar, in an area that these islands, Port au Français, they're French islands, that one's a science center in that general area. And I don't know what kind of science they do there, but, it could be, any number of sciences, because down in those areas, I mean, they're using a lot of observatories, like in Patagonia, the Chinese have a monitoring station for signals coming from the moon. And, it just, the further south you go, the more you hear about these weird science labs that are being set up for monitoring extraterrestrial activity. So, I don't know. It's Richard C. Hoagland with us tonight. The other side of midnight.com. We're going to be back with more from him. A lot of strange happenings on the planet. And yes, it could be someone out there is sending a message down here that they're coming, or something is out there. Some people call it the Galactic Ghoul. Other people call it something else. But still, it's an amazing phenomenon. Richard C. Hoagland's here to talk about it tonight. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
Hey, on the phone with me is Ronnie at GetTheT.com. Ronnie, I got to tell you, I'm getting emails. People are writing me and they're saying they're using the tea, and I'll tell you, they're very happy with the results. Can you tell people why it's so good?
Well, it gets rid of all the bad stuff and leaves all the good stuff, and, takes out all the stuff that shouldn't be in your body. And usually the byproduct is people lose a little bit of weight, and people actually feel better with lots more energy. So it's cool.
Get to tea. And also a new product called Minerals Plus. What do we have to, what is that all about?
Minerals Plus is cool because a lot of times we're deficient in some things. There's 72 trace minerals that are inside that product, as well as potassium, magnesium, and coral calcium. So it's kind of a bumper. You take one or two of those a day, and that'll bump your energy too, because you have fuel to run on. So I'm very excited. It's been selling really well.
Minerals Plus and Get the Tea at GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com. Ronnie, thanks for the call. Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, Clyde.
More with Clyde Lewis and Ground Zero on FM News 101.
Wouldn't it be lovely to make contact with another civilization that has arisen and evolved independently? Well, one thing you have to do first is to be sure you understand the message.
Arthur C. Clarke famously said, either we are alone in the universe or we are not. Both are equally terrifying. And that fascination with the concept of intelligent life out there, what would happen if we somehow managed to make contact?
Astronomers at Stephen Hawking's Breakthrough Listen project detected some mysterious signals they believe could be coming from intelligent aliens.
We're searching for evidence that alien civilizations have been trying to communicate using radio waves as an alternative to phones.
A Russian telescope has picked up a signal from a sun-like star 94 light years from Earth. The signal is strong enough, some believe, to raise the possibility that it was sent
excitement about a radio signal coming from deep space.
So Bay Area scientists today said we need to decide what we're going to say to extraterrestrials. It is, and it could be humanity's most important message, a simple hello.
New Scientist magazine reports some say it might be a signal from an alien civilization.
Signal from an alien civilization.
Russian astronomers may have picked up a crucial clue about whether there are aliens living just 94 light years away from Earth. Astronomers detected a 2-second burst of radio waves coming from a star in the constellation Hercules.
It's a gigantic signal, greater than anything we've seen so far, and it seemed to be from an intelligent civilization thousands of years more advanced than us. That was the strength of that signal.
The signal coming from a point between the Pisces and Aries constellations has been detected 3 times by the SETI radio telescope in Puerto Rico.
My personal belief is that there is very compelling evidence that we may not be alone. Whatever that means.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. My special guest tonight, Richard C. Hoagland. TheOtherSideOfMidnight.com. And talking to us about what is out there and what is coming. What is signaling us? You know, there are many things that are pointing to the idea, and I call them cosmic similarities, synchronicities, and perhaps, quantum entanglements, or maybe even some hyperdimensional effects going on out there that are signaling to us that something needs to be done down here. And the leaders are aware of it. People are aware of it. Some people who are keeping their eyes to the skies are aware of it. And now you have to open your ears too, Richard, because it seems that not only do we have hums, we have booms, we have lights in the sky, all kinds of anomalies that are portents to what is coming. And I don't know. I mean, you have been talking about this for years, and now I guess you should feel a little vindicated about what you've talked about in the past and how it seems that while NASA's in the business of deny, I think normal people are saying they can't hide it anymore.
It's getting harder and harder. So let's kind of do this, logically and hopefully in some organized fashion.
Okay.
Last fall, October, November, the Pan-STARRS network of telescopes located on the island of Maui, Haleakala, 10,000 plus feet, detected an object entering the solar system from directly north in the constellation of Lyra, about 90 degrees to the plane of the solar system, as the planets all go around the sun in a plane about as flat as an old LP record. This object was determined because of photographs taken and orbital calculations done on the positions to be the first known interstellar object entering the inner solar system or any part of the solar system from outside in the history of science, the modern history of astronomy. And it zipped in at an extraordinary velocity, over 50 miles per second, made a sharp left-hand turn around the sun because of gravity, and then shot off into interstellar space again, never to return, at an angle to the plane of the ecliptic, to the plane of the planetary orbits, in the direction of Pegasus, constellation Pegasus. It was never visible in any telescopes as more than a point of light, because it was very, very small on the cosmic scale. From the light curve, from the fact that it was kind of changing brightness in an regular way, they determined a model which basically said it was tumbling. It was an object much longer than it was wide. In fact, it was much, much longer than any comet or asteroid nucleus that we've ever seen in the solar system.
Yeah.
And it was tumbling with a period of about, I think, 7, maybe 8 hours. From the light curves, they were able to reconstruct a kind of a model of what this object would look like if it's in a spacecraft, which they couldn't because it was going like a bat out of hell and we would never catch it with today's technology. So all the inferences about this object, which they called a Muamua, named after an ancient Hawaiian term referring to a scout, and I'll get to the details of that naming in a moment. They called it a Muamua. They only were able to observe it on the way out because nobody caught it on the way in. Even on the old images, they only had it as around of the sun. So it's going out of the solar system at beyond escape speed. Then they noticed something really, really weird, that it was accelerating, like Rama. Remember Rama with Rama?
Yeah, the Arthur C. Clarke story. Yeah.
Yes, amazing. It was an interstellar thing, comes into the solar system. It's in the 22nd, 3rd centuries, I forget what. We've got fusion-powered spaceships then, which can actually rendezvous. So in Arthur's story, a crew from, quote, NASA, or whatever the NASA was back then, goes and lands on it and goes inside and explores it. Well, we don't have that capability. At least we don't think we do.
Right.
Certainly not in ESA, NASA, the Japanese, the Chinese, whatever. Now, there are rumors, all kinds of rumors about a secret space program being run for decades. Solar Warden is one of the names, and there's a bunch of other names. And they're supposed to have real anti-gravity spaceships and all that. What do you bet, Clyde, that if NASA, in terms of what's on the record, couldn't go and catch this thing, somebody from the secret space program with real anti-gravity spaceships could and did?
Did you know that Oumuamua, and this is what I heard, that Oumuamua, when it was sighted, someone was very interested in the movements of Oumuamua. His name was President Trump, Trump had said, we better reconsider the Space Force idea and submit it to the Pentagon. It was after Oumuamua sighting that everybody got excited about Space Force. He wanted to have a Space Force or a group that could analyze and track things like Oumuamua. Stephen Hawking, before he died, said we need to get a trace on Oumuamua and get some signals from Oumuamua. And that was when METI and SETI both said we need to change our minds about what we're trying to do with our arrays, because we're no longer looking for communications from aliens. We're looking from techno signals or techno signatures from their machinery. That's what they were saying. They changed their mind about what they were doing.
Well, the mainstream has totally changed their mind on aliens.
Of course they have.
So let me go back to the Oumuamua story.
Okay.
So, by the way, I have an announcement to make which involves the President Donald J. Trump, tonight down in Argentina. And we'll do that after the news at the top of the hour, okay?
Okay.
Major announcement. You're not going to miss this, because it's how, Clyde, your audience can actually help put this over the top. I need the help of your audience to pull off a real important coup, as you're going to hear after we do the news at the top of the hour.
Okay.
So back to Oumuamua. So this object is sighted. Every telescope – sorry about that. I have something caught in my throat tonight. Weird.
Yeah, it's going around. So go ahead.
Mercury retrograde. Anyway, so by the way, that's real phenomenon. You know why it's real? Because in the hyperdimensional physics model, when Mercury appears to go backward from the Earth, it's stirring the physics of the orbiting solar system backwards.
So it creates all kinds of different maladies in people. They respond to it.
Vortices in the torsion field, in the ether, whatever.
Sure.
And it does weird things to electronics, personal communication, consciousness. So all kind of weird, what's going to happen in Mercury retrograde. And there's a real physical reason for that in the hyperdimensional model.
So back to Oumuamua and what you were saying about it, and leading up to where you were. I wanted to get you back to where you were.
Yeah.
I know the
Okay. So they spot this object. They only see it when it's leaving.
Mm-hmm.
NASA decides they're going to call it this arcane name that nobody's ever heard of. Well, one of our guys went to the Hawaiian dictionary, because did you know there's a Hawaiian dictionary online?
No, I didn't know that. Mm-mm.
There's everything online. We are living in the golden age of everything's online. So he went to it and he found that NASA actually wasn't quite telling the truth about why they named this thing Oumuamua. They said it meant first messenger from afar. That's not really right. What it means is battle scout of a war party.
A battle scout of a war party, meaning that what? This was some sort of a...
Meaning their interpretation of Oumuamua is this was a battle scout of someone coming who's not our friend.
That's what I was
thinking. And then all these weirdnesses have started happening.
And don't forget that whatever this thing was bright red. It was not typical. And it did not have a cone tail like a comet, even though they were classifying it as a comet. That's another thing that needs to be pointed out.
Well, the weirdest thing about it was its trajectory.
Right.
Because normally when you do the equations, if something comes into the solar system from outside, it's orbiting the galaxy, it kind of wanders into our, field of gravity, the sun's field of gravity. It should zip in and zip out at exactly the same speed. Like when you throw a rock in the air, it'll fall back down and hit the ground at the same speed that you set it up. Equal action, reaction, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
This object did not do that. This object actually accelerated after it rounded the sun, which for any natural object or comet or any asteroid or any piece of junk cannot happen. And there were several papers published because for a brief period, they said, it's got to be a comet after all. And the jetting from the outgassing, the gases, exploding into vapor because of the heat of the sun, because this thing came really, really close to the sun, like maybe half the distance of Mercury or something, speaking of Mercury. So they said, it had to be outgassing, except in all the telescopic data, there was no coma, no halo, no nothing jetting out of it. It was just a hard, bright, untwinkling point of light that rhythmically varied in brightness because of the rotation. Actually, it's not rotating, it's tumbling.
Right.
It's a chaotic tumbling, which also raises the question, how can an object in interstellar space develop a chaotic tumbling? When you're in interstellar space, whatever the rotation is a rotation. There's no other forces. Stars are light years distant. The gravity fields on it are like 0.00000000, keep going until the program ends. So what caused it to tumble? Did somebody attack it? Did somebody detonate a nuclear weapon next to it, causing it to tumble, trying to kill it because it was a battle scout of a war party? Again, names are important, a la Shakespeare. So anyway, this thing is leaving, and then these papers start appearing saying, it's accelerating. It's got to be a comet after all.
But then we have those scientists from MIT that said we have to rethink Oumuamua because there were some characteristics about it that certainly it certainly screamed of being some extraterrestrial craft, and
they started thinking it was a comet. I'm hearing my voice come back every once in a while. They started to think it had to be a comet because the jetting could only be explained in Newtonian physics because of something leaving it, like a jet reaction.
Right, but then that's the confusing part is the acceleration process as it left, as it seemed to be.
But here's the way we can dismiss that idea.
Okay, we got to take a break though. We're running into the break, but we'll be right back.
Okay.
Richard C. Hoagland with us tonight on Ground Zero. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back.
FM News 101 KXL.
You're listening to Ground Zero with Clyde Lewis on FM News 101.
My guest tonight is Richard C. Hoagland, the other side of midnight.com. And he's making an amazing connection with the Oumuamua. By the way, George H.W. Bush has just died. United States president, former 41st president of the United States, has just passed away. George Herbert Walker Bush, 41st president, has died. And we'll keep you updated on that. I'm sure you'll hear at the top of the hour news. Richard C. Hoagland with us tonight on Ground Zero.
So are we back?
Yeah, we're back. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's so eerie because Barbara died just a few months ago. And they lived together and loved each other for so many decades, just like my grandparents. My grandfather died very shortly after my grandmother died. It's like, they can't be apart.
Nope. That happens, So, yeah, we just got the announcement. George Herbert Walker Bush, 41st president of the United States, has passed away. So back to
Oumuamua. So one of these guys, and all these mainstream astronomers now are jumping into the act that Oumuamua is artificial, Clyde, I've never seen the mainstream so embracing the idea of aliens and ETs and all this. It's suddenly like they're preparing us for something.
I would say so. I would say that, that certainly this would. I have never been so blown away by a topic that has continued to resurge and resurge. It's only been a year. I mean, October was when they cited it. And it certainly has resurged and resurged and resurged. And every time you have a number of scientists, like the recent scientists from MIT saying, well, this needs to be reconsidered as a possible alien object or some sort of an extraterrestrial object that may have been piloted by intelligent life forms. Immediately, NASA steps in and says, hey, you're using the A word. We don't like it. And then they try to discredit these scientists, just like they discredited Gilbert Levin with the Life on Mars story and all this other stuff. And it just seems to me that it's getting tougher for them to cover.
Well, it's kind of hard when the head of the astrophysics department at Harvard University, Andrew Loeb, comes out with a major paper saying the damn thing probably is artificial.
Right, exactly.
I mean, NASA is being crammed back into the box that they've emerged from sometimes. Anyway, so back to Oumuamua. So one of these groups did a calculation that if this thing was jetting material into space, vaporized ices like a comet, it would spin it up so fast it would tear itself apart. You could, in other words, unless you had the forces going through the center of gravity, which in an irregular, long, pencil-like object tumbling randomly would be impossible. The jetting not only would change the orbit, but it would also make it spin faster and faster. And they had months to track this thing, and the light curve stayed totally steady. The tumbling is steady, which means there are no forces acting to make it tumble faster or spin faster. Therefore, the comet model, the jetting model, cannot be real. So what's causing this thing to violate Newton's laws and accelerate away from the sun like Rama? That implies some kind of drive, some kind of intelligent design, some kind of artificiality, some kind of probe that maybe we tried to knock out, which is why it was tumbling in the first place.
Well, and another thing, too, you look at the different translations of Oumuamua. One of them is like the battle scout, and the other is a battle scout that brings a message that is from the past. And we see it in the future now. So what this is an ancient artifact or an ancient ship of some kind coming in to bring us a message. And that message was not received because quite possibly we either attacked it or this is one part of the message that is being sent. And it's like I was saying back when they first were talking about the message that was sent to Opportunity or sent from an Opportunity. There was a signal that went out and they said, we thought it was Opportunity, but no, it wasn't. And then they downplayed it and said it's nothing. So there are messages being sent right now, and we need to pay attention to them. Richard C. Hoagland's my guest tonight on Ground Zero. 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Back with more Ground Zero. Don't go away.
FM News 101 KXL.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment. The Paranormal Radio app. Free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Join me on a journey where getting lost is the only true destination. Where the past, present, and future all coexist on the same timeline. Where happiness is an illusion. This is the future we are in right now. Where our phones are the first things that we touch when we wake up. The last thing we touch before falling asleep. Radiant, seductive screens we so lovingly, endlessly gaze upon. Much like you're doing right now. Well, welcome to a future where our true reflection is only revealed once the screen goes dark. Welcome to the darkness. I hope you find it enlightening.
The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Siri." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Siri." The loudspeaker spoke up and said, "Wait, Siri." Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Give up. Wait, Siri. Wait, Siri. Wait, Siri.
I'm Clyde Lewis, and this is Ground Zero. Reports tonight, just a few minutes ago, George Herbert Walker Bush, 41st President of the United States, has died at the age of 94. News broke about 10 minutes ago, 10 or 15 minutes ago. We broke it here on Ground Zero, and then, of course, now some stations are breaking away for live reports of George Herbert Walker Bush, our 41st president, has passed away at the age of 94. Preceded in death by his wife, Barbara. That was back in April. And a lot of our condolences go out tonight to President Bush and family. And I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about his passing on a future Ground Zero show because of all the secrets that I'm sure he brought to his grave. Of course, was the head of the CIA during the Carter administration and all kinds of other interesting things I'm sure we can explore in the realms of conspiracy with George Herbert Walker Bush. But tonight we're focusing on the signal, the message, the galactic ghoul speaking to us from beyond, the idea that something out there certainly has our interest. And it may not be good. They're sending us signals. We're seeing the signals. They come in natural forms, where they come in fast radio bursts, gamma bursts, certain types of fields and certain types of lights that are shown. We have interest from all the major arrays, SETI and METI, looking for techno-signatures. NASA now has the charge that they have to look for biosignatures out in space now with their missions. And, Richard C. Hoagland, my guest tonight, has been talking about Oumuamua. And, of course, a fascinating topic Oumuamua is and what it is that it could have been, what they're saying it is, and how it could have been a messenger of some kind. Because now, if you've noticed, a year after Oumuamua, we've been having a lot of talk about extraterrestrial life, biosignatures, the idea of looking for techno-signatures left behind by extraterrestrial civilizations, signals coming from Mars that may be from opportunity, and that NASA decides to kind of write off and say, really, it was a false positive. InSight landing on Mars. The coincidences add up tonight, and Richard C. Hoagland's trying to make heads or tails of them. Richard, welcome back to Ground Zero.
Thanks, Clyde. Let me make this announcement at the top because I didn't know that George Bush was going to die, so many of your affiliates are probably doing their own programming right now. But let me tell you what's going on. Several months ago, I was asked by a very close friend, longtime friend, decades-long friend of the president, Donald Trump, to prepare something to send to the White House on our research. So we did that. It's called the Presidential Briefing. It's about 3.5, maybe almost 4 hours long, because it contains everything in the kitchen sink, everything you ever wanted to know about Cydonia, what's on the moon, details of what's at Gale Crater. We obviously did it before the InSight landed, so we'll talk about InSight later. All of this now has been sent to the White House about 2 weeks ago, in time for his trip down to Buenos Aires and the Bariloche potential visit that I'm suspecting is going on. What we're doing tonight is we're opening up the lines, and we're going to make this available to the general public. You want to see what your president's doing? Well, this is the briefing that he has received. Now, I have not gotten feedback yet as to what he thinks. The briefer who asked me specifically for the link for the very long briefing has said that it's stunning, absolutely first rate. So that's one hurdle we have crossed. What I want to do is to create a kind of a political campaign, starting with your audience tonight, Clyde. I want people to go to theothersideofmidnight.com. I want them to look at the main page, the home page. At the very top, you'll see the presidential briefing with the seal and the cover of the video briefing. Click on that. That takes you to a dedicated page. Since we don't have the link live yet, so you can't purchase this yet, what you want to do is you want to send us over on the left-hand side of the screen, you want to send us a message that you've logged on, you've seen the link, and you're going to order when we go live, which will be my show on Saturday and Sunday night. We're going to go live with this link on Saturday and Sunday night. Saturday night, we're doing a major show on a stunning legal breakthrough in the whole 9/11 problem. We're going to have members from the 9/11 Lawyers Committee on, and they're going to tell you in great detail. Citizens now are finally get a chance to open that can of worms and see what really happened with the trade towers and 9/11. And you know, Clyde, we have not been told the truth. You realize that, right?
Right, I know that, yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. This is a huge breakthrough, which our show was kind of, shall we say, efficacious in helping bring about. And we're going to talk about the whole thing during the Saturday night show. On Sunday night, I'm assembling the people who did the briefing video for the president, and we're going to talk about all the weirdnesses in the solar system we've now presented to the president, almost hand-carried, except it's all electronic these days. And who knows what he's going to do with it. Now, look, this is Donald Trump's NASA, right?
Right, it is. It's Donald Trump's NASA.
Yeah.
We hear that he has a lot of plans for Space Force, a lot of plans to go to the moon and Mars. We've heard
He
about...
appointed this congressman from Oklahoma, Jim Bridenstine, who I saw during the Insight coverage the other day. Bridenstine is a very sharp cookie. He's really on top of things. And he's talking about all the strangenesses that are going to come up in the NASA programs in the next month. Well, to give you an example, the morning after we do the Sunday night show, on the morning of December 3rd, NASA, with its OSIRIS-REx spacecraft, is landing a probe on this little so-called asteroid, 1,600-foot wide asteroid called Bennu, which is right out of Egyptian mythology, the Bennu bird, the phoenix. They're landing a probe on it on Monday morning. They're going to live stream it live. Well, guess what, boys and girls? Bennu is not an asteroid. It's an ancient Borg cube. It's a damn spaceship, Clyde. Just look at the pictures.
That's what I thought.
It's a spaceship.
The Bennu
now, how do we know?
A precursor to that one that sent out that signal. What was the name of that one? I can't remember right offhand. It was. They were talking about Bennu as the next project. OSIRIS-REx was the next project after they received communication from another, quote, asteroid that was actually a space station.
Well, hang on. A couple months earlier, the Japanese mission called Hayabusa 2 rendezvoused with another asteroid called Ryugu, which means Divine Dragon Palace. Okay? And Bennu means phoenix, the old from the new, the old rising from the ashes, or the new rising, from the ashes of the old, that kind of thing. These two objects, these two so-called asteroids, are mirror copies. Ryugu is a cube. It looks like a damn Borg cube, except it looks like an ancient Borg cube with the corners rounded because of erosion. It's been orbiting the sun as a derelict spacecraft 3,000 feet across for millions and millions of years. The solar system-wide civilization that left all the stuff we've been seeing on Mars and on the moon has now been leaving calling cards around the solar system. And isn't it interesting that these space agencies know how to go to the objects that are ancient spaceships and not just natural objects? Like the Europeans with their Dawn spacecraft visited, the so-called comet 67P. This does not look like a cube. It looks like a kind of,
that's the one I'm talking about. 67P.
Yeah, it looks like an ancient spacecraft.
It sent out a signal. Did you hear the signal?
I've got it recorded somewhere.
I'll play it. I've got it.
Play it.
Hold on. I'll play it. Wait a minute. You talk about it. I'll play it. Okay. I've got to find it though. Go ahead.
As the Dawn spacecraft crept up, because what they do is they go with ion drive, they head for these things, then they kind of slow down and they creep up on them so they don't wind up hitting them, because if you hit something with your spacecraft, bingo, there goes the spacecraft. So the final maneuvers to rendezvous, go into orbit, to send stuff down to the surface is done very carefully, very slowly, and very delicately. Well, as the Dawn spacecraft was approaching 67P, this bizarre radio signal was picked up by the so-called plasma wave radio receiver on board the spacecraft. And when you listen to it, and Clyde's going to find it and play it in a minute, it's the damnedest thing you ever heard, because it's clearly a very, very low frequency, precisely rhythmic, artificial signal.
Exactly. And we're going to play that coming up. We're going to take a break right now. I'm going to play that signal. We've heard it before on the show, but you got to hear it again. It sounds like communication. It's amazing. And we're going to play it. Richard C. Hoagland with us tonight on Ground Zero. We're getting signals from space. We're getting signals from intelligent life forms in space stations that they're exploring. And NASA does not want to tell us. And these signals are from the past. They're from the past, giving us a signal that something is happening. Something's about to go down. Either they send it with these signatures, communicative signatures. They do it naturally with fast radio bursts. It's happening. We are getting the communication. NASA's in denial. We're delivering the goods tonight for you. 888-673-3700. We'll be back. Triple 867-3700. That's 888-673-3700. Richard C. Hoagland, my guest tonight. The other side of midnight.com. Now, we were talking about, all of these missions to land on assumed asteroids. But, of course, Richard's saying that what these things are space stations, maybe occupied or not. And we brought up the 67P story about Rosetta. And we were talking about a recording that was made of what was, I think it was the European Space Agency made a recording of communication. Am I correct?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I said it was Dawn. It's the Rosetta spacecraft. The Dawn spacecraft went to Vesta and Ceres. After they get to be in the hundreds, you kind of forget which one is which without the tracking numbers.
Right. And I think Dawn just died, actually. Dawn. Well, it didn't die. It ran out of
attitude control fuel, so that they're in orbit around Ceres, which has bizarre features on its surface as well. Remember those incredibly bright illuminated spots?
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
You know what latitude they are?
What are they? 19.5?
19.5.
Interesting.
Now, let me tell you something else. Switching back to the G20 conference in Buenos Aires. It's 20 major nations of the Earth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Except it was 19 because Merkel couldn't make it because her jet had electronics problems. So it was the G19. Then when she gets there, I guess she got there late today, it's back to the G20. You divide by 2 because the two events, 19.5.
That's amazing. How it
They can't do anything without a ritual. So based on that, directing people back to the other side of midnight.com. By the way, I'm looking at our rotating globe, and there's a whole bunch of your callers logging onto our website, okay? And
That's
I'm going to take
fantastic.
another swig of water because I need water.
There you go. You didn't spill any, did you?
Something's in the air tonight. It's you and me. We're both coughing like crazy.
I know, it's crazy. I've been coughing like a storm, and it's kind of a painful cough. I don't know what it is, but it's everybody's getting it. Everybody's getting it.
Well, it's chemtrails. It's who knows what it is, and you're drifting down to Earth. So if you go to the other side of midnight.com, you click on that super at the top of the page, the presidential briefing. You will be able, come tomorrow, Saturday, Sunday, you'll be able to start ordering this. We're, by the way, charging $19.5 for it. Might as well keep within their ritual, okay? This will give you 3.5, 4 hours of what we've given to the president. He can, with a keystroke, end this cover-up, Clyde. Himself, unilaterally, he simply says to Bridenstine, I want to see all the data on the inhabited solar system. Those guys there, before you came on board, have been keeping secret for 50 years. And they'll give it to him. They have to, under law.
Well, what I want to do now, people are going to the website, I want to play for everybody that recording of the Rosetta picking up and communicating with 67P, and I'd like to play that. Can I play that for you right now?
Go for it.
All right, this is
This is what we call the singing. There's one that's just all the ticking and the talking. This is the singing version that I have. This was the second one that was released by the European Space Agency. It was far more intriguing because it was singing to the Rosetta. Listen to this. So are we listening to alien communication there? Is that what that is? Listen to that. That's amazing.
Well, what it sounds to me like, back when this first happened, remember, the Rosetta spacecraft was closing in slowly so they don't hit the damn thing. And then suddenly this started happening, but it happened at a very low rate, a very low frequency. That's been sped up to a higher frequency so we can hear it. It's almost like the spacecraft triggered a proximity detector, still alive, still working in this ancient spacecraft, looking for beacons, looking for something to approach. And when the Rosetta spacecraft came within a certain distance, I forget how many thousand miles, it triggered this, and there seems to be some kind of modulation in that rhythmic frequency, which has been sped up, I guess, 1,000 times or something, so we can hear it. Totally bizarre, because comets don't do this. Asteroids don't do this.
Right.
They don't suddenly start broadcasting when a spacecraft, heaves into view.
It's kind of like, hello, we see you. Come on in. Say hello. We want to know who you are.
An ancient beacon, a robot waiting carefully, patiently for how many millions of years till something came close enough for it to transmit to. I mean, that's all the physics I've just described is how you could describe what happened, because it's not a natural signal. Even though ESA and NASA said, oh, it's just, plasma waves. Sorry, not. Plasma waves don't do that.
No, they don't. And that's the thing, is there have been so many different evidences, I think, of communication, or at least attempted communication between our probes and something that would be considered either sympathetic AI or synthetic AI, robots in space, perhaps even biological life forms in space. And as I said, and I've covered many times on this program, it just seems to me that deny is the optimal word for NASA. Never a straight answer about these things, telling us the building blocks for life exist on Mars. And now here we are again discussing signals from the past, signals that are alerting us to something that is out there. And then what I want to do to wrap this up in the next break, I want to wrap up, some of your theories on what signal was sent that may have triggered the earthquakes, maybe even some of the volcanic eruptions on the planet. And then we'll get to some phone calls. Richard C. Hoagland, my guest tonight, theothersideofmidnight.com, 888-673-3700. That's 888-673-3700. We'll be back.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
ourselves gliding there or to carry him to the planets and the stars. It's up to you.
Milky Way galaxy, circling a star called the Sun, is a small planet inhabited by intelligent life.
Director of Science Today will refocus America's space program on human exploration and discovery.
That's an interesting fact, that what we find here on Earth, it's on Earth as it is in the heavens, right? The chemistry on Earth we find repeated across the universe. On Earth as it is right now. It's on Earth as it is in the heavens.
Can we travel faster than light speed? Faster than light speed? Stay tuned to find out.
Future highly efficient automatic industrial centers, producing all our needed goods and distributing them in abundance.
State of man.
These are the mysteries of the cosmos.
Love machine.
The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency.
Of Japan. 2517.
It's running on toroidal energy, so-called zero-point energy, simply the energy of the universe.
You're talking about free energy?
That we've had since the 40s.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero. The numbers to call tonight, 888-673-3700. Richard C. Hoagland is with us tonight. The other side of midnight.com. Some fascinating stuff about signals that we have overlooked. We've talked about on the program, but of course, Richard doing the homework and giving us the information tonight, fascinating. And so this leads us to where we are now, where we are today, and how it seems that, you know, as I said before, it's sort of a synchronicity that back in 2004, there seemed to be signals coming from space prior to the Sumatra quake. Prior to what happened there were fireballs, there were gravitational pulls, strange things happening, coming from space, and then we had a 9.0 quake that caused a tsunami. And on November the 11th, there was something bizarre that was going on near Mozambique, Madagascar. It's a place called Moyote. It's an island there, and what's really creepy about it is that there is an antipodal, meaning if I were to dig in that area, I would wind up in Alaska. And so it just seems to me that this is all too convenient, that we've been having these signals, we've been having these things happen, and now here's an even bigger signal. And sometimes I think gamma rays or whatever may be out there, a lot of scientists laugh and say that's God's way of saying hi, or it's the aliens' way of saying we're here. What do you say to that?
Yes, and yes.
Okay. All right.
Look, this is all going to be coming down to sometime between now and the end of the year, according to our model, the you-know-what's going to hit the rotating kitchen appliance.
Right.
I do not think that Putin and Trump are in Buenos Aires tonight. By the way, Buenos Aires just came up on my screen. We can see people logging in from all over the world. Somehow someone's listening to us in Buenos Aires, and they're tuning in.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got all this condensed into this 3.5, 4 hour, it's somewhere between 3.5 and 4 hours tape video of an exhaustive analysis of these extraterrestrial vehicles and objects and stuff on the moon and on Mars and a Gale delivered to the president. If you want to get a copy of this, you go to theothersideofmidnight.com. You click on that presidential banner, and then because the link is not going to be live till tomorrow night, during tomorrow night's show, and on Sunday night's show, we're going to deal with 3 hours with all the stuff we've shown them, we've talked about with the imaging team, including InSight did not land just in an average place on Mars, Clyde. There's a ancient buried city all around this spacecraft.
Elysium.
Yeah, Elysium, which, by the way, means paradise.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Paradise burning, and paradise on Mars.
And where was the face on Mars found? Elysium Quadrangle? In the same, roughly...
Cydonia, actually.
Cydonia, yeah. Yeah, it's in the general vicinity. It makes me wonder if they, once again, they go back to the face, they go back to the area that was a known city that you had shown and talked about, that Hertak theorized about. It was written about, by Clark and by Jack Kirby and a number of people. I mean, it just seems to me that they're actually going back and they're not covering their tracks, but they're going back and they want to claim this as their discovery now, rather than giving you the credit and giving Hertog the credit and Van Flandern the credit and all these people.
Hang on. Credit Schmedet. We're talking to the President of the United States, okay? Enough said.
Okay, well, still.
If you want to see what we've sent him, which he's reading, by the way, did you hear the other morning Bridenstine actually said on the air during the Insight landing that he got calls from Pence, Vice President, head of the National Space Council, and from Trump? They both watched the landing because Trump got his briefing and he looked at this stuff and he's saying, well, you don't know what he's saying yet, but he's certainly saying something. Now, look, Trump is a builder, right? He spent his growing up years kicking around with his dad in all those empty lots and all those building construction sites all over New York, right?
Mm-hmm.
If anybody can look at a picture and see a ruin, an artifact, a piece of junk, things that are not new, because when you tear down buildings, like he tore down the old hotel to build a new hotel there where Grand Central Station was, it's going to look old. Penn Station, I'm sorry. It's going to look old. It's going to look ruined. It's going to look ancient. So this is a guy that can look at a picture and see an artifact that most of the people listening may not, and he'll go, that shouldn't be there. Now, he has the power with a pen to bring this all out in the open. One man. So here's my strategy. I want people to pick up this video. You either order it directly from us, 19.5, or you join the other side of midnight for less than $10, half the price. You become a member. You get the video for free that way. And what you then do is you go on Twitter, on Donald's Twitter feed, and you say to him, Mr. President, what do you think of the stuff the Enterprise mission showed you in your briefing? That's all you have to ask. What do you think of the stuff the Enterprise mission showed you? And in enough thousands of people do this, Donald will not be able to resist responding both to you and to NASA, and he'll order them to come to the office, the Oval Office, with the photographs to show how currently the latest spacecraft, InSight, has landed in an ancient inhabited crater. And I got this directly from a guy at JPL named Matthew Columbeck, who's the guy designing the placement sequences of the seismometer and the heat flow probe. And he's the one that revealed they've landed in an ancient crater. Well, it's not just any crater, because if you look at the photographs taken from the camera on the top deck, look around the rim, you'll see all these buildings, all these structures.
What about the shiny objects that they're sending back pictures of? Shiny objects.
The shiny object at the foot of the InSight spacecraft appears to be an ancient ceramic or glass artifact. We've done some enhancements when they took pictures of it with the cover on and now with the cover off. And it's clearly an artificial object. And the only way that you could land right next to an artificial object on a planet like Mars is if there's tons of artificial objects buried in the regolith, in the sands. And when the spacecraft came down with the rockets blasting to lower itself,
it uncovered it.
The blast of the rockets uncovered this thing lying basically right next to the lander, and it's stunningly artificial. So we're going to talk about all of this Sunday night with the imaging team. We're going to have all kinds of amazing pictures showing there's a 50-foot building on the top of Bennu, which I'm going to show you. It's a 5-story building with a whole bunch of other buildings, obviously left by a later civilization after the ancient Bennu cube board ship type spacecraft was long gone, is eroded and extinct, the culture that did it. So other later cultures have gone out around the solar system, like NASA, like our secret space program, and they've landed on these objects, and they've sometimes left newer spacecraft on these objects, and we're going to show them and talk about them on Sunday night. Again, the way you get into this party, the way you get into this campaign, is you get the briefing video. You downlink it when the link is live on Saturday and Sunday night and then forever on. You watch it. You watch it with your family, with your friends. You tweet about it. You send on social media. You know, the people have got to pick this up because we've made it so it can't be pirated. So you can only look at it on our site and download it from there. And then you tweet to the president, for God's sakes, Mr. President, make this stuff public. Go public with it. It will make him the greatest president in the history of the United States with a keystroke. Just like that.
Well, we'll see what happens with that, because if you ask people direct questions, or if you try to tell people that communication or at least signals have been sent from space getting our attention from extraterrestrials, they laugh at you.
Except, remember, Harvard is now saying Oumuamua probably was artificial.
Right.
The seas are changing, Clyde. We can't be fighting the last war. We have to fight the next war. And the next war is to get our guy. Remember, this guy was put in there by the people. He's not part of clubs. He's not part of the in-crowd. He's not part of anything. He's picked fights with 15 different government agencies before breakfast every morning on Twitter. He's the one guy. Maybe it's Providence. He's the one guy that could pick up the phone and say to Bridenstine, bring me the real photographs in the next half hour.
University of California, Irvine also has talked about the idea that we are receiving technosignatures from spacecraft from extraterrestrials. We have others who are speculating about whether or not extraterrestrials or the Greys or whatever they may be are synthetic artificial intelligence, and they've been visiting this planet as explorers, that they send their robots down to meet with us or to speak with us or to abduct us, whichever. And this is what we're hearing. The problem is the mainstream sources are not reporting this. We're reporting this, and it is what is happening. I mean, we have the proof, we have the documentation, we have all these things, but there's so much political fighting right now that it's so much noise, and you cannot pick up on the amazing things that are going on right now in space.
Clyde, this guy, this president, of all presidents I've dealt with, I have a very funny George Bush story if we have time. I've dealt with other presidents. This guy is not like any other president. This guy with one tweet could change everything. And he's been given the full 3.5 hour full Monty from the Enterprise mission. He's got it. We know he's looking at it. You know, he either looked at it before he left or he's going to look at it when he comes back. We don't know yet. But we did it in time for this conference so that it's part of the conversation with Putin, with Merkel, with Macron, with May, with the other movers and shakers that run the world. And they're all there in Buenos Aires, which is now online listening to you on the other side of midnight.
Bueno, quiero hola de los Estados Unidos a Buenos Aires, Argentina, capital federal. Bueno, I used to live there, so it's kind of like
really?
Oh yeah, I lived in Buenos Aires for a while. Mm-hmm.
Gene Robinson this morning on Morning Joe said there's an incredible steakhouse somewhere in Buenos Aires.
They're all over the place. They're all over the place. Where I lived about a block away from it was the Pink House, Casa Rosada. And near Retiro, there was some amazing places to eat steak. You don't want to eat steak, though, in the places where the tourists go. You want to eat in some of the areas outside.
No, this is an obscure little place. He said you'll never find it. And he
is it called Negro El Once? Because that's one of the best places to eat steak in Argentina. It's out of
I don't remember.
Yeah, no. Negro El Once has a butterfly steak that's so delicious. It's so tender and thick. You can shove a whole knife in it, and it'll go right up to the middle of the handle. That's how thick it is.
So this coming Sunday night on my show, The Other Side of Midnight, 9 o'clock Pacific, log on to theothersideofmidnight.com. Unless you're in Southern California, you can listen to us on the air. Theothersideofmidnight.com. We're going to spend 3 hours going through all the artifacts, all the spacecraft, all the missions, multinational missions that are out there exploring these things that look like ancient board cubes. Where do you think Roddenberry got the idea, Clyde?
Oh, of course. They're out there. And in fact, we've seen them near the sun as well. They're huge. And of course, the City of God is a cube, by the way. City of God, it's a cube.
That you back in Revelation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
because a cube is two intertwined tetrahedrons. A cubical spacecraft is the personification of hyperdimensional torsion field physics.
Yes, exactly.
They're living their truth, or they were. They're no longer with us, and we have to find out why, because we like to stay living. Now, I had a caller the other day send me an email.
We have to take a break. We're getting thrown into a break right now. We'll be right back. Richard C. Hoagland, theothersideofmidnight.com. We'll be back with more. Don't go away. Richard C. Hoagland's our guest tonight on Ground Zero. We got a little bit of time for phone calls. We're going to go to Jack in California. Hi, Jack. You're on with Richard Hoagland. Go ahead.
Yeah, my question to Richard is this. in your opinion, would President Trump be able to visit Area 51 unannounced and have full access, and would you recommend that he do so?
Yes and yes.
There you go. Yes and yes, he says. You would
All right,
give,
well, I issued that challenge when he became president. I'd like to see him do it.
if you get involved with what I think Richard's doing the other side of midnight, I think maybe it'll give him an urge to do it, like maybe tweet or something.
We know the president responds to his constituency. He's been overwhelmingly loyal to his constituency. If a fraction of the people that voted for him and want to keep him in office in 2020 sent him a tweet and said, for God's sake, look at this, this, and this, call Bridenstine, take a look at the unvarnished photos, the unphotoshopped photos, do you think Donald would not respond to his constituency? Of course he will.
I think he will. It says he's so interested in Space Force, and Oumuamua triggered it. I think that
he watched the Insight landing live, and I don't think he's aware yet, because Bridenstine, I don't think, is aware himself, because they keep it from these people, the in crowd. There's artifacts right next to the lander foot of the Insight spacecraft, and there's artificial buildings all around the interior of that crater.
It is no accident they landed in Elysium. There's no accident at all. It's the paradise. We've been talking about paradise on on Mars.
Yep.
They did it on purpose. That's why all these things that we've done all week long have led up to this point. So, Jack, there you go. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Let's go to Howard in Minnesota. Hi, Howard. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, actually, it's in Michigan, Clyde, but how you guys doing tonight?
Doing well.
Doing pretty well, except for the coughing fits.
Yeah, go ahead. You're on the air.
All right. Anyway, you guys kind of talked on this already, but is that you remember, Clyde? You remember how you talked about synthetic life forms, like in previous shows that you did?
Yes, I've talked about the synthetic life forms that they now are speculating are what we have come in contact with regard to alien grays.
Yeah. You think that, like, with all these signals that we're getting, is all connected and everything, right?
Richard, do you think it's all connected?
Yes.
It is. It is all connected.
I'm giving one-word answers tonight because everybody's asking the right questions.
Yeah, and I think it's because, and Howard, you would agree, I'm sure, we've had shows about this prior to you coming on. I think you are you're the voz final, if we can use a term from Argentina. You are the voz final of what this is, and that is, for the longest time, we were receiving these communications. Places like METI and SETI have changed their minds about what they're dealing with. You've had other scientists at University of California, Irvine, MIT, and other locales who've now changed their minds as to what we're dealing with. Oumuamua was a spacecraft. Others are telling you that it isn't. Rosetta came in contact with a spacecraft. Bennu is about to come in contact with another spacecraft. The signal that we got from Opportunity was a signal from the past that echoed through Mars. The signals that we've been getting from space are creating vibratory responses from the planet, and we're getting pulses, and we have a number of pulses, and they all were originating from that island out there near Mozambique, near Madagascar. And I just got word that Mayotte Island, get a load of this, I don't know if you knew this, Richard, the locals there claim that island is possessed by the jinn. I'm not kidding you. This island has been known by the locals as being possessed by the jinn. So
I have to check out the latitude, longitude right away.
19.5. I don't know. Anyway, Howard, thanks for the call. Richard, thank you so much for being on the program. Stay tuned. We don't know if KXL, the station that we are flagshipping on, is going to direct reports about George Herbert Walker Bush's death. But in the meantime, theothersideofmidnight.com. Check it out. Richard Hoagland, thank you so much for a remarkable show. You have a good night.
Thanks, Clyde.
Take care.